Bienvenidos, señores y señores, to another Bleedlos podcast YouTube short. So, we're going to do a live reaction here because the news just broke today that the Dodgers, the Los Angeles Dodgers, have designated Trevor Bauer for assignment, which I don't think was a shock to Babyface or myself. If you saw our last YouTube short that we did, we basically anticipated, I think everyone anticipated, that the Dodgers were going to go ahead and release him. So, Babyface, I know that you were eagerly anticipating when they were going to drop this news. When it finally dropped and they released him, were you surprised? Because I feel like leading up to this, a lot of people were like, why is it taking so long? And I think people were trying to convince themselves that the Dodgers were going to keep him. Did you think, oh my gosh, maybe there is a chance that they're going to keep him?
I mean, that's kind of what I felt like. I think we mentioned this on the last show we did. I mean, they could have as soon as he was reinstated, 5 minutes later they could have come out, we're releasing him, right, and
Yeah.
be done, right. But yeah, the longer it took, I mean, they went all the way to the deadline. Like, you start thinking like, well, are they considering it? People I kind of spoke to were saying like they didn't know it was 50-50. They didn't know what was really going on. Were they actually considering to keep him? Then we thought, well, maybe if they keep him, I mentioned to you, maybe they put him on and then try and work out a trade, up until start of the season, and then try and move him then. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of surprising, but I guess they were just doing their due diligence, checking out every possible option, like if we keep him or do we trade him, kind of just you know I mean, you would expect them to do that, right? To just to go over everything, every scenario, like we did. What are our options if we do this? What are our options if we do that? And then they finally came to the decision, like I said, we thought was the most likely. Maybe not a lot of people. There's a lot of people that are upset about it, that they wanted him back and they felt that if we're gonna pay him, might as well have him on the team. So a lot of upset fans, in that regards. But the decision was to release him.
Now, you put up a poll on the Dodgers Beat website, right, on whether to keep Trevor Bauer or to release him, or even I think you gave another option to trade him, right?
Correct.
Do
Yeah.
we have an update on the final on that poll?
So last I checked, it was like 60-30. Let me just double check here real quick.
Well, while you're looking that up, I know there were a lot of polls out there. The LA Times did a poll. That was the closest poll that I saw. Was 51% wanted him back from the LA Times, 49. But everything else, every other poll that other Dodger websites were putting out there were like 60-30. I mean, 60-40, 65-35. You name it, of bringing back Bauer. And look, I get that because I feel like the majority of the fans were just looking at this as in terms of baseball. I think the majority of Dodger fans were looking at this as like, we need starting pitching. We're going to pay him, bring him back. I don't think, I'm sure there were some Dodger fans that were looking at it in terms of as an organization. And I can't stress this enough. This was not a baseball decision. I believe this is a business decision, right? So,
Yeah.
do you have the final numbers on the poll?
Yeah. So it was 57 to keep him, 26.5 to release him, and 15.9 to trade him.
So, I mean that again. I mean, you add the 27 to the 15, and it's fairly close, but it does lean towards, again. I think the fans wanted him, but it was just a very divided topic. I think, as we mentioned before, I think Dodger fans. I think the biggest fear, really, that Dodger fans have is that this guy's going to go sign with another team, in particular, someone a main rival, and we're going to pay him, and he's going to beat the Dodgers.
Yeah,
I think that's what everybody is anticipating is going to happen. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, babyface. Once they put him on when they release him, he goes on waivers, right? And it's going to take what, 7 days for him to go through waivers.
I heard it's 7 days. So they can either they can try and trade him, or someone can claim him. But no one's going to claim him because then they'd be on the hook for the 22 million.
So what needs to
So
happen first? Can they trade him first, or do they have to put him on waivers first?
no, he's already on. So they can trade him. They can
On
trade
with
him.
whoever claims him, right?
Um, yeah, so he can be traded. Yeah, if he gets claimed, you can trade him. But from what I heard, also is there wasn't really a trade market for him, so nobody was willing to trade for him. That's because I think also one of the things they're doing during this last couple of weeks was looking for a trade partner, and from what I've heard as well, it doesn't seem like there was a lot of willing trade partners. So that may be an issue. So it looks like ultimately he might just get released, right?
So let me ask you this: if you are another team in Major League Baseball, is the thinking this? Let's say the Dodgers paid the majority of the 22 million. Like they say, like, look, we'll trade him to you. We'll pay. Let's say we'll pay 17 of the 22, and we'll take a prospect. We won't even take like one of your high level prospects. We'll just give us one of your bottom prospects. We just want him off the team. You don't think there's any team in Major League Baseball that would take him because they feel like we can get him cheaper because we know you're going to release him. It's the
I'm
worst kept secret. Everyone knew that the Dodgers were going to release him.
I'm sure there probably is a team that would probably want to do that, but then they also have to consider the PR hit that they might get, right?
Right.
I mean, considering what has happened, and you know, I know people are going to say, well, he didn't do anything, or but regardless, this is the situation. This is the situation he's in. This is what he's been accused of, and he got punished for, and this is the situation he's in. Correct. So we can't change that. So other teams now are looking at it in that same vein, right? So now they know that if we we're the Padres, we're the Giants, we choose to bring him on, there is going to be blowback, right, from fans, right? I mean, it'd probably be the same way, probably be 50 split, but there will be blowback. So another organization is going to have to consider that as well. Do we want to take that risk as well?
That is something that I want to see if whatever team does end up signing him, if there is going to be major blowback. Because, I mean, show pods, I would love to talk to Nick Kreider about this. If the show pods decide they want to sign him, I mean, how many show pods fans are really going to be upset that they signed Trevor Bauer? How many? I mean, right? Yeah, I know we hear it all the time from show pods fans saying, "Hey, nice signing there." But I guarantee you, if Trevor Bauer can help them win a World Series, they're going to forget about this real quick. And I feel that's what happens with the whenever there's an off the field incident, people have a really short term memory, and like you brought this up on the show all season long last year with the things that happened with Ozuna. We never heard anything from it. I mean, it would have been nice to maybe have somebody on from Atlanta to see, hey, was it an issue in Atlanta? But on a national scale, nobody brought it up. I mean, we never heard anything about it. Now, I get it. Trevor Bauer is a bigger name than Ozuna. Trevor Bauer has more of a reputation. So maybe nationally this will be a bigger story. But I feel people have a really short term memory. So I'm very curious to see what the reaction is going to be from the fan base of the team that does end up signing him.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's going to be interesting to see if there is a team that's willing to do that. I mean, I think there probably will be. I just think because the talent's there, right? He's a former Cy Young winner. He does come, like I said, with his baggage, but I think there is somebody that's going to be willing to take that chance and let him continue his career. Um, I think it's interesting though. I know you were going to get into it. The Trevor Bauer message that he put out today, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, let's get into that because that to me is that dude just stirring the pot. If anybody is not aware of the statement that Trevor Bauer put out, he literally put this statement, within minutes of when the Dodgers put out their statement?
Yeah,
Am I right on that, baby?
yeah, probably like within 10 minutes. Yeah, they had their statement.
So basically, what he ended up saying was that, hey, the Dodgers told me they wanted to sign me. Like he's making it out to seem like he is totally blindsided by this decision. Now, according to Trevor Bauer's statement, he met with the Dodgers front office. Now, he doesn't specify who in the front office he met with, but on Thursday in Arizona, they met and they told him that they were looking forward to him playing with the Dodgers in 2023. But again, we
Well,
don't know which officials these were that met with Trevor Bauer. What were you going to say, Babyface?
well, I was gonna say what he said. He said he sat down with the Dodgers leadership in Arizona yesterday, who told me that they wanted me to return and pitch for the team this year. So, I mean, the way I read that, right, and obviously, is he making it up? I don't know, maybe not, right? But the way I look at that too is he's Trevor Bauer, right? He's like we discussed. He's going to be a pitcher that can help you, right? We know what he brings to the table, right? So most teams are going to be like, hey, yeah, I want this guy on my team, right? Like I want this guy to pitch for me, right? Like, hey, Trevor Bauer, I want you to pitch for our team this year, right? But, right, there comes a but. So like, if he's talking to leadership, they could have told him that, hey, Trevor, we want you to pitch for us this year. We'd want you to be on our team, but there's obviously all this stuff that has happened, and it's not going to happen, right? So he could have left that part out, still
Yeah.
being true. It's still true what they told him, but you leave out that part because I feel there is a but there, right? Whoever he was talking to.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I don't think you can say he's a liar because they probably, I mean, look, we've talked about it. We've had people on the show that have said that Andrew Friedman doesn't care about this kind of stuff. Andrew Friedman doesn't care about character. Andrew Friedman wants to win games. And Trevor, I was about to call him Jack Bauer for all you 24 fans, but Trevor Bauer allegedly is going to help you to win games. Now, so I think you're right. It may be absolutely true that that Andrew Friedman, it has to be Friedman, right? That he met with. I mean, if he's meeting, you think Stan Kasten is going to tell him that? Do you think Stan Kasten is going to sit there? Hey, dude, we want you to pick. Because I think you're right. I think they probably said, hey, man, we really would like to have you, but it's not our call. This
Yeah,
is coming from ownership.
yeah. I
Mark
think 100
Walters.
100% this is coming from ownership. This
Yeah.
was an ownership decision. Ownership looked at it. I think they took it out of the hands of Friedman, and they made the call. They waited on like you said, not a baseball decision. What is this decision going to do as far as as a PR hit, basically? And I think this was a 100% ownership decision.
What I find really interesting is also that the LA Times is reporting. Now, earlier, the LA Times had reached out to some players in the clubhouse, and some players were willing to have him back. They were open, they were willing to welcome him back into the clubhouse. Now, when the news broke that the Dodgers had DFA'd Trevor Bauer, the LA Times reached out to 5 Dodger players. They don't say who they reached out to, which I'm very curious. I'm assuming it's going to be the 5 biggest names on that roster. Reached out to him, and all of them said no comment. Now, one thing I do feel really bad for, and he's going to be on the show on Monday. Chris Taylor right now is doing a media tour to promote his charity event. How many times do you think people are going to ask him now, would you have liked to have had Trevor Bauer on the team?
Yeah, I mean, interesting. Now, I saw a tweet earlier. Somebody had they took a screen grab of the Dodgers post on Instagram. When they did and one of the people that liked it was Bruce Star.
Yeah.
So are they associating that Bruce Star liked that decision, or is Bruce Star just liking posts that the Dodgers post? Interesting enough, though, also someone that liked that post was Chris Taylor's wife. So
And we've talked about this before where, yeah, maybe the players don't have an issue, But a lot of those players have wives on that team. And I bet you those wives probably weren't happy with him. And they're probably, I mean, these guys don't want to hear it. I mean, obviously, I think who we want to hear from, and we talked about this on our last YouTube short. I'm sure Friedman, if they did their due diligence, they talked to Kershaw, they talked to Mookie, they talked to Freddie Freeman, and they were basically, hey, what do you guys think? Would you guys be okay with him bringing him back into the locker room? I think another thing that actually really to think about also is looking at this Dodger roster. There's not that many people left on the roster who did play with Trevor Bauer. I mean, Cody Bellinger's gone, Justin Turner's gone. So these are kind of new relationships that Trevor Bauer would have coming back to this team. But I saw that same thing. And the one thing I think that you got to ask yourself with Bruzdar, does Bruzdar manage his own IG account? Does he have maybe somebody else running his IG for him and they ended up liking it?
I mean, I think he does, but I mean, there's just a lot of people that they see stuff, hey, this is their team, hey, I like it, hey, and they'll just like post, that time we see that a retweet or a tweet, a like isn't necessarily saying that I'm agreeing with this. It's just you're on social media and you're just like whatever liking posts or whatever, right? So
Right.
it's tough to say, tough to say like was he doing that because he didn't want Bruce Star back, or you can't say.
Well, honestly, obviously this decision I don't think was a surprise to anyone. You saw it all over Twitter. Everybody was expecting this. Everybody, I think secretly, those people who want to see Trevor back, I think were secretly hoping that the Dodgers were going to go ahead and keep him. I had even heard some ideas, and I think you mentioned it, that they would add him to the 40-man roster and then use this time up until the season started to try to find a trade partner for him. So I don't think there's any surprising news tonight. The thing that surprised me the most was the statement that Trevor put out, because I think that to me illustrates what we talked about on our last YouTube short. This is what you would have to deal with for the rest of the season if you had him on the squad. Like, when is this guy going to go left and start creating problems for you and become a distraction?
Well, yeah, I mean that's the thing too. Like okay, you bring him back, he's on your team. Like like we mentioned, the risk I think it was too high, right? So you bring him back, he's on the team, right? And then it's May, right? And then for whatever reason, maybe somebody sues him, right? Another accuser comes out, or just all these things that could happen, right? So now I don't think they wanted that headache again, right? Because since he was signed, there was people that didn't want him, right?
Yeah.
Like me, I was fine with it. I knew with the baggage he brought, it, I was cool, whatever. I knew what Trevor Bauer could bring to the table. Let him pitch, right?
Yeah.
But then the things went down, right? So now those people are like, you see, we told you, right? So now if you bring him back and then something else goes down, to be like, you see again, like, so I think that risk was just too high, and just the sideshow of it all was just going to be too much of a distraction. One of the things though too I've noticed too is you saw the Chapman news, which turns out to, we've heard from LA Times, they're saying that it's not true at all. That their sources say it's not true, but a lot of people are saying like, hey, but they're willing to bring on Chapman.
Yeah,
that's not true. Another thing a lot of people bring up is Julio, the Julio situation. Oh, but you're willing to have Julio on the team. The Julio thing is completely different. I mean, just completely different. The Julio situation was, there was some sort of argument. I think she's trying to leave. You try to grab her. She ends up falling. Right. She ends up falling to the floor. And Julio took full.
They both did.
Credit.
They both people involved in that incident both realized they did something wrong and there was accountability. Yes, go ahead.
They both, full accountability. He apologized. He even did what MLB asked him to do. Right. Yeah. So that's, like I said, that's the thing too. We mentioned with Bauer. Even like you said, even if you don't think what Bauer did was wrong, right? He still hurt the team, right? Put him in a bad situation. So even for that, he could apologize for that, right? hey, sorry for what I put the team through, my teammates. But he won't do that, right? We know Bauer
Yeah.
won't do that. So that was one thing. He never took accountability. And to me, like I said, I put this solely on Bauer. Like I said, even if you think, yeah, he didn't do anything right, anything wrong, the first thing he did wrong is he's responding to somebody's DMs, right? Like, why would you do that? You're Trevor Bauer. You just signed a record contract. Why are you doing that? So right there, that this falls, solely on his shoulders. It's like he put himself in that situation that he shouldn't have been in the first place.
You bring up an interesting point because I feel a lot. I'm starting to see this a lot, and that is the Dodgers should have never have signed him in the first place. The Dodgers didn't do their homework. The Dodgers didn't vet him. I have a hard time believing that the Dodgers didn't vet him. I think the question that we should be asking, because all that stuff about him, do you remember like when they had the introductory press conference with him? Both him and Friedman both had acknowledged that Bauer had said he never apologized for his behavior in the past, but what he acknowledged was past mistakes. And it was mistakes referring to the allegations that he was using social media to harass women, that he was spreading conspiracy theories, that he was using like sensitive language, right? He acknowledged that at the press conference, and according to him, he had learned from those past mistakes. So now he gets accused. He has something, and we're gonna get to this on a separate episode. We have a special guest who's gonna go ahead and we're gonna discuss all this stuff. So even though there wasn't charges pressed against him, and there's nothing technically criminal that he did, the Dodgers already got burned because, like you said, if Trevor Bauer stays in line, if he doesn't have this, they probably don't end up trading for Scherzer. Okay, meaning they still have Kiebert. They still have Josiah Gray. Those are maybe trade chips that they could have used to get somebody else. Maybe a Juan Soto last year. Do you know what I'm saying? And I get it. I hate when I know you guys hate when we talk speculation, but in that sense, I agree with you in the sense that not only did he hurt the Dodgers, because of what you did, we can't count on you, but now we got to spend our assets to get somebody to replace you. He hurt you. So when they're making this decision, and again, it's not a baseball decision, but we already got burned once. And we talked about this on our last one. This is a trust thing now. How can we trust that you're going to stay in line here and you're not going to create more of a distraction when you're still unwilling to even acknowledge? We're not saying, okay, hey, you did something criminal, but you're not even willing to acknowledge that you violated the policy, because that's what the arbitrator said. The arbitrator said that and this was an independent arbitrator, okay, ruled that the league had met the burden of proof in showing that Bauer had violated baseball's sexual assault and domestic violence policy. So that's what he is guilty of. He may not be guilty of criminal, but he's guilty of violating the policy. If he does something else, and mind you, there was enough proof, according to this arbitrator, to give him the longest suspension in the history of the sport under this policy. If he does it again, then at that point, I don't think you can feel bad for the Dodgers. At that point, I don't think you blame Bauer. At that point, you look at the Dodgers and go, what the hell were you guys thinking? He already burned you once. Why would you let him burn you again?
No, I think you hit the nail right on the head right there, with the way I try and explain it, to people that say like he didn't do anything, he wasn't found guilty, he wasn't charged. Correct, he wasn't, but he works like we all work, right? He works for an employer, right?
Yeah.
MLB. He violated their conduct, right? Their
Yeah.
policy, right? So just like me or you, if we violate our policy conduct from work, right? We're gonna get disciplined, right? We're gonna
Yeah.
get suspended, whatever, right? If they suspend us 30 days, then they evaluate us. do we really want this person back? Yes or no? And they can fire us, right? So that is the same situation that Trevor Bauer is in. He works for MLB. He violated by their rules, their policy. So that is why he's in this situation. And that's what people need to understand, that he violated his company just like you and I. If we violate our
Yeah,
company's policy of whatever, right? We are going to have be held accountable. And that's what happened with Trevor Bauer.
absolutely. And I want to wrap things up with this. The other thing that I'm hearing, and that is, do we even know how good Trevor Bauer is? Like, I know he was still working out, but working out on your own is not the same thing as playing in games. And I know if you look at his numbers with the brief time with the Dodgers, he had a 2.59 ERA. Okay. Now, that was also around the time that they were cracking down on that sticky stuff. Remember? And
Mhm.
a lot of people were accusing him of using that sticky stuff. And he was one of those guys whose numbers got elevated when they took away the sticky stuff. So I believe there are some question marks. I think the fact we saw this with David Price. I get it that David Price is older, but remember, David Price didn't play the year of the COVID year. And then when he came back, he did not look good. He looked rough. And that was because he was away from the game for more than a year. So, how realistic is it for us to expect Trevor Bauer to come back after not playing for more than a year? Is he going to be as sharp as he once was? I mean, do you think that factored in at all in the Dodgers' decision to DFA him, or is this just strictly like what you've been saying? We already look bad. We can't put ourselves in a position when we're going to look bad again.
Yeah, I mean, how he's gonna pitch if he comes back? I mean, yeah, that's an unknown. Um, I mean, I guess it'd be someone coming back from Tommy John or something like that, right? A
Right.
long layoff. So remains to be seen. But like I said, this wasn't, like you said, this wasn't at all a baseball decision. This was completely business, completely the Dodgers ownership. They just felt that they couldn't bring him back, just because of all the possible unknowns, and just the just what could happen. Just they couldn't trust him. They lost that trust, and they knew they can't afford to get burned twice. And I'm not saying, hey, that he's going to go and do something dumb or get accused again. Like, hopefully not, right? I don't want that to happen again to Trevor Bauer, right? To have to go through that again, right? Hopefully he plays. He could play his career out, and he plays rest of his career, right? But the Dodgers just could not take that risk again. I think that risk was just too high for it. That if it does happen, they would be in a worse situation.
Absolutely. And last thing from me is this: it is you hit it on the head in terms of the risk for the Dodgers. It is less of a risk for any other team. All 29 other teams that in Major League Baseball, if they go ahead and they sign him, it is less of a risk for them because all that is really costing them is the minimum, is the league
Mhm.
minimum. And if something comes up, because I don't think this is over, I mean, he filed a lawsuit against the accuser, so this story is going to be ongoing. And then the other thing, as much as you don't want it to, because that's why you have a union, allegedly all this stuff is going to be confidential. We're never going to really hear all the stuff that he was accused of or that Major League Baseball used to do the suspension. But we all know stuff gets leaked. So if stuff starts getting leaked out and it's worse, you're just hearing more stories about more accusers and stuff like that. Other teams can just be like, you know what, screw this. It's not worth it. Let's cut them. And they're just out the minimum. So
Yeah.
it's just I think it's just a no-win situation for the Dodgers.
Oh
The
yeah. Just
question that I leave with is this, and that's for more Dodger fans. I don't buy that the Dodgers didn't vet Bauer. I believe they did. The question is why were the Dodgers willing to overlook the stuff that they found? That's the question, because at the same time, as much as we think the Dodgers are a pillar in the community of Los Angeles, at the same time they did go ahead and sign him when all of this was public knowledge. So I don't think that the Dodgers can act like they're holier than thou. I think there is some stench with them right now. And go ahead, Babyface. I want to acknowledge some of our viewers on here before we sign off.
No, I was just gonna say, just that. Yeah, I mean, they just the risk, like we said, the risk was just too high for them to take, right? Well, I'm trying to remember what the last point you made prior to that. Um, but yeah, no, regarding if he gets picked up by another team, right? Yeah. I mean, I I think I think probably somebody will do it, right?
I don't doubt that anyone's going to do it.
But yeah, like the risk for them is less, right? They're just they know the past, obviously, but they're gonna if they're gonna give them a chance, if anything would happen, come out, or this trouble would still stick with him, yeah, they can cut him. If the long layoff has affected him and he doesn't perform, they could cut him, and they're only in for the minimum, which is like what, $750 or something like that. So it's the risk obviously for another team is way less than it is for the Dodgers.
And I want to thank some of our viewers on here that are commenting here. Simeon, always a great supporter of the Bleed Lust podcast. Simeon, happy New Year to you. And he was watching the Laker game at Jack in the Box. Simeon, let us know if there's some good news with the Lakers. Another super fan, Philip Lopez. Now, I don't know how many times I got to have this conversation with you, Philip Lopez. And Babyface has said it before. Like, Philip Lopez, here's a comment from Philip Lopez. Friedman is going to make something happen before spring training. Trade for Corbin Burns and Adames. As Babyface has always said, what makes you think that the Brewers are going to trade Corbin Burns and Adames? Right, Babyface? You said that you heard that Adames likes playing in Milwaukee, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to think about it, but who says that Milwaukee wants to trade those guys, right? And why would they trade them to the Dodgers, right?
Exactly. And Stephen Webb, a writer for the Dodgers Beat, make sure you check out his stuff on Dodgers Beat. Stephen thinks this was the right move. It's not worth the fuss. I think that's exactly, I think that's what the brass is thinking about, Stephen. It's not worth the headache. But again, the question is this. I'm sure that the Dodgers are going to get, I've already seen a lot of articles that the Dodgers made the right move and that the Dodgers are going to feel good about themselves. But again, the question is this. You vetted him. This stuff was already out there. Why did you guys still decide to make the decision to sign him? What is it that you heard from him that made you think he's going to be on the straight and narrow? He's not going to burn us. And now I just don't think, at least not the Dodgers, because they're taking a hit. I think their reputation has already taken a hit with this situation. I don't think you can risk further damage. Babyface, yeah. How do you want to close things out? You got any last words?
No, just make sure you check out our next Monday drop of the podcast. It'll be with Chris Taylor. So he's got that event coming up next Thursday at Topgolf. So there is a discount if anybody's interested in going to that. If you put in Friends 25, you get 25% off single tickets or bay tickets. So it should be a good event. He told us. Who did he tell us is going to be there?
Brett Young will be performing. Some former Dodgers will be there also. He did not confirm. Hey, save some for the show. I want them to listen to the show. Check out the show so you can see which former Dodgers.
Well, one we know is also George Lopez for sure. That's already out there. He's going to be there.
Okay. Well, either way, you should check out the episode. It's going to drop on Monday. Chris Taylor is in the carne asada. And again, this is a reminder. This is a YouTube short. But if you're not subscribed, if this is the first time you're coming across us, If you're not subscribed to the podcast, go ahead and subscribe. We're available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can catch all our episodes. We got them all listed, all our past episodes. You can catch up. I want to thank all our supporters that actually take the time and write into us and tell us how much they enjoy the show. We've gotten a couple of those letters this week, and I can't tell you, I can't thank you guys enough. It's very encouraging to hear that you guys enjoy the show that we're doing for you guys. I mean, we like doing the show. We do it our way, and the love that we get from our loyal listeners, it's just that we are indebted to all of you. So again, this has been one of our YouTube shorts. This is only on YouTube. It's not on the podcast. So that's why you got to subscribe to the YouTube, because you never know when we're going to drop another YouTube short. So for the Bleedless Podcast, yo he sido su servidor Juan Ramírez, parte de mi colega Babyface. Nos vemos para la próxima. Adiós.